it's spring break. And of course, young people are flocking to Florida, despite the fact that COVID is still running rampant throughout the country. Normally I wouldn't have a problem with people going to spring break. I'm not trying to be like Fox News here and be like, oh, look at these spring breakers. Oh my God, this is so terrible. You know, while all the male hosts, of course, get all googly eyed and they're like, spring break. It's so bad. So immoral. Look at all these spring breakers without, in their swimsuits. Yeah. No, we're not doing that here on the show, okay? But we are going to talk about how a lot of these spring breakers, especially in South Florida, are causing problems, violence, and not only that, but it's basically creating a super spreader event. Oh, so here we go. So now this is going on as local governments, of course, are still trying to vaccinate as many of the most vulnerable people as they're able to do. But it's going to be a while. We're still not done with this. We're still not done with COVID. We're still not done with the vaccinations. There's still quite a few months away from actually having the vaccine, at least around the country, to be prevalent enough to have enough doses to inoculate everybody, regardless of your age. And so, all right, this can be a bit of a problem, a big problem. But unfortunately for us, it doesn't seem to matter to some of these students, as well as the governor, Ron DeSantis, who sure loves that sweet, sweet tourism cash. The problem, of course, is, as I mentioned, it's going to be the epicenter of another wave of coronavirus, as if Florida isn't already having some issues. Those crowds were actually so large, and actually, in some cases, very unruly. So unruly, in fact, the mayor of South Beach ended up calling a state of emergency. According to NBC's reporting, Miami Beach declared a state of emergency over the spring break crowds after Mayor Dan Gelber announced an 8 p.m. curfew for the South Beach Entertainment District. He also said that shorebound traffic in the city's causeways would be shuttered as a result. Both measures will be in effect for at least 72 hours, the mayor said, while extending the emergency is debated by officials. Crowds last night resembled those of a rock concert, according to officials. The same officials, of course, who were not prepared for this. And so city officials not prepared for the massive influx and or violence associated with the influx, as well as, of course, the impending, I would assume, influx to the emergency rooms, to the hospitals in the areas. Because, of course, yay. City manager Raul Aguila says, as we hit the peak of spring break, we are quite simply overwhelmed. And responding to the crowds and how big they were, he said you couldn't see the pavement, you couldn't see the grass. And of course, how many of them were unmasked? I would assume quite a few of them, unfortunately. Very little social distancing, which means that the virus will be able to spread. Because of course. And sure, they themselves might be fine. Most of them will likely be okay, mild symptoms. Percentage of them might get really, really sick or and even develop a pre-existing condition. A few of them might even die. Looking at the numbers, okay? But generally, again, younger people tend to have lower mortality rates than other groups, but still not something to mess around with. But here's the worst part about that. Speaking of not wanting to mess around with this, they might be fine, but they gonna bring it home. And this is the problem. To all the different places, all the different states, all the different schools, all the different colleges, bringing that virus home, spreading it to the staff, assuming, of course, because, not all colleges have opened up. Not all states have opened up. The problem is we really do have like 50 different little countries going on when it comes to their reopening. So some places are open, some places are not open, and it really depends. And that's a problem when you're trying to get a hold of a virus that doesn't care about state borders, state lines, nationalities. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care. So yeah, that can be a real big problem. So now state figures have already shown that parts of South Florida have continued to be a hotbed for COVID-19 transmission. The state itself has surpassed 2 million coronavirus cases that we know of. Now, remember, the DeSantis government has been caught trying to hide the numbers, trying to fudge the numbers in order to get under target so that they could open up faster, so they could open up businesses. That's Ron DeSantis' whole thing. I'm going to open up Florida. Oh, great. And we're going to do that by hiding the numbers and firing the one data scientist and then trying to arrest her for putting out the actual numbers. So you add these people into that mix, into that volatile mix right there. And, well, look, it's not going to be good. It's going to be not good at all. And while it's true that some businesses are shutting down, for example, the Clevelander South Beach Hotel did say that it was temporarily shutting down its bar and restaurant. Here's the statement the hotel said. Recently, we have grown increasingly concerned with the safety of our dedicated employees and valued customers and the ability of the city to maintain a safe environment in the surrounding area. Now, that is not because of COVID, though. It's actually because of violence. Police Chief Rick Clements said his officers responded to multiple fights on South Beach on Friday night. People fighting with chairs and using tables and makeshift weapons and you know, just doing bad things. That's why they're shutting down, not because of coronavirus concerns. So that is also very bad. Now, during a Saturday news conference, the mayor also blamed the crowding on accessible travel, saying, quote, there are a lot of cheap flights. Last month, you could get here from Philadelphia, New York, or Chicago for a $50 round trip. You know what? I'm reading this story earlier and preparing for the show. I didn't realize that that was a definite look at the cities that this man picked. Oh, New York. Oh, of course. Chicago. As well as Philadelphia. Oh, you know, all those cities. What do they got in common? Lib cities. That's what they are. Yeah. And of course, they're the ones that come down here and cause problems. It's not the patriots from the red states, from the good areas. They're the ones who are coming here causing all the problems. Of course. I just realized that. So it's even worse than I imagined. Now, not only that, but of course you got cheap accommodations, and then you have a bunch of people that their heads are filled with basically disinformation. Okay. And then of course you have people that just don't care. They want to get out of the house. They don't think that they're, you know how young people are sometimes. Some of them believe that, they're invincible, that nothing's going to happen to them. And, they're going to be fine. They heard from Fox News that, the COVID death rate for, 18 to 24 or 25 year olds, very low, very, very, very minuscule. And so it's okay. Not remembering, of course, how it's not just about them, it's about who they bring the virus home to. So now that, of course, has led to a lot of criticism. Ironically, in this thing, Fox News, I mentioned this at the top of the segment, Fox News every year would go and make a segment about how the spring breakers are horrible and they're not, they're scantily clad, and that's the degradation of Western society, all this stuff. Well, now, hold on here. Where's Fox News talking about this? Oh, these irresponsible college kids with COVID. No, they wouldn't do that. Of course not. They're not talking about this at all. Okay, and so they're pretty silent on this because they're okay with the spread of corona if that means, of course, that it makes Joe Biden look bad. Because, again, that's what Fox News is about. They're the propaganda arm of the Republican Party, and all they want to do is to make sure the Republicans get into power and enact their kinds of policies. Of course. Now, many other Americans, though, had a kind of an angry take. I want to give you a selection of some of the social media outrage. One person says, I'm sorry for all the nurses and doctors that have to deal with this aftermath. Another person says, Grandpa and Grandma, aunts and uncles, moms, dads, this is coming home to you. Good luck. Another person says, this is not a COVID-related issue. It's because of stupidity. Restaurant brawl shootings and rampant crime. But don't worry, this will be the last year you see a spring break like this in Miami. They did the same thing Fort Lauderdale did and end spring break. I doubt that'll happen because spring break, money for the state of Florida. And then finally, one person says, there's no cure for stupidity. True. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.